Brittany Raftis here, registered dietitian at the Sport Med Clinic on campus. And in this video, I'll be sharing 3 tips to adjust your nutrition intake for a reduced training load. So I know that a lot of you are doing really well being able to maintain a solid training routine with online workouts and everything that's available to you. But I also realize that some of you may rely more on training centers or gyms, and over the summer it can sort of be challenging to maintain that same level of training. So I just wanted to share some tips for those who may find that their training level has reduced, in order to help to kind of keep the focus on nutrition, prevent any weight cycling from happening, and still support kind of the current level of activity that you are doing and set you up for success ultimately for next season. My tip number 1 for trying to adjust your eating to a reduced training load is to maintain a regular eating routine as much as possible. So this can be very difficult right now. You don't have a class schedule, maybe not working right now because everything is kind of closed down. So it can be difficult to maintain some sort of a routine, but we do want to make sure that we continue to kind of have that proactive mindset when it comes to eating and our meals and snacks, just like we are kind of forced to when we have that crazy busy schedule during the school year. So be proactive with your meals and snacks, kind of put thought into it, and think ahead of time, because that will kind of help you to make good choices and help you to kind of fuel properly each day. So by trying to maintain this consistent eating routine, what I mean by that is trying to have a meal or snack every 3 to 4 hours. That tends to be when most of us are kind of digested from the previous meal and hungry and ready to have our next meal or snack. During a heavy training period of time, often my recommendation is to have something every 2 to 4 hours. And that window shrinks if you're somebody who is struggling to just kind of meet your basic needs every day. So we're kind of liberalizing that a little bit here, just because if we are having a reduced training load, our needs are going to be a little bit lower. But we still want to have that routine throughout the day, because as you can see in this image here, this green line represents our energy levels and how widely they'll fluctuate if we're only eating 3 times a day or less. That blue line in the middle helps to highlight how by eating every 3 to 4 hours, we are helping to keep our energy levels within our optimal kind of range throughout the day. Eating in this routine will also help you to manage your hunger levels. So if you find that since your training routine has decreased, maybe your food intake has decreased, you're just feeling hungry all the time, this can help to manage those hunger levels by eating every 3 to 4 hours, which ultimately helps you to feel good energy-wise, and helps you to avoid kind of having to reach that level of feeling over hungry and then overeating and having those kind of, again, wide fluctuations of energy throughout the day. So my second tip here is to adjust your macronutrients accordingly. So I'm going to go through our 3 macronutrients, carbs, fats, and protein, and how we should be adjusting them if we have a reduced training load. First, carbohydrates. So carbohydrates, as you know, are your main source of fuel for high intensity activity. So as your training load reduces, your carbohydrate needs will reduce as well. So if you are currently in a state of a lower training load, you'll likely be eating less carbohydrates than you did during your season. So I have a couple plates here to put this into perspective. It's really difficult to get too specific in a video like this because everyone's needs will be a little bit different. But just to kind of highlight how this might look, I have these visuals here. So the red plate on the left highlights what somebody's plate portions might look like at a meal during a state of heavy training. So what I mean by heavy training would be if you had a schedule where you have multiple training sessions per day, really high intensity over 2 hours a day. So in this example here, we've got half the plate full of carbohydrates. So these are your grains, pasta, rice. We've got a quarter of the plate with protein, and then the other quarter of the plate has vegetables. That's kind of the proportion that we're looking for in general to support that heavy training load and those carbohydrate requirements. As we get toward a reduced training load on the right, so the right image with the blue plate would be light training. So this would be kind of the opposite side of the spectrum. And of course, there would be an in-between as well. But this example here on the right would be if you were training for up to an hour a day of moderate to high intensity. So as your training reduces, that portion or percentage of carbohydrates on that plate will reduce as well. So in the example on the right, this would be kind of the lowest carbohydrate likely that you would have if you're still maintaining a little bit of activity. So that makes up a quarter of the plate here. The rest of that percentage of the plate that used to be filled with carbohydrates are now loaded up with more vegetables. And then the protein content here stays the same at the remaining quarter of the plate. So essentially at meals, as your carbohydrates reduce, with your reduced training loads, vegetables will increase to kind of replace that and help to bulk up that plate with fiber. Again, if you're somebody who's kind of a large portion eater or a volume eater, you might find that by reducing your carbohydrate intake, you're going to be hungry or you're not going to feel full after a meal. So loading up that rest of that portion of the plate with vegetables will give you that fiber in bulk that you need to kind of feel full and satisfied after a meal. So next is protein. So your protein needs do not change based on your activity level. So I say that generally because when I work with athletes, I will suggest various levels of protein intake based on goals. So if they want to build weight, lose weight, etc. But generally, your protein intake won't need to change based on just a reduced training load alone. So that will stay the same. And then our last macronutrient is fat. So I've got some healthy unsaturated fat sources here listed: salmon, nuts and seeds, olive oil, avocado, nut butters. I have this as an increase because often during the season, you might find that in order to help you to meet your carb and protein needs, you might not be focusing on fat so much. And we don't tend to focus on fat a lot in performance nutrition discussions because doesn't tend to be used as that source of high intensity energy like carbohydrates. But this is a great opportunity to focus on building these healthy fats into your routine. So the sources listed here, these healthy fats have a great anti-inflammatory benefit. They're great for brain health. They have a lot of additional benefits. They also help you to feel full and satisfied after a meal. So again, if you're somebody who's struggling with hunger, with a reduced food intake, fats can help you to have that feeling of fullness that you're looking for. So my final tip is to aim for high fiber foods, protein, and healthy fats at each meal and snack. So typically during the in-season, if we've talked before, you've probably heard me say have protein and carbs every time you eat. Here, we're just generalizing that a little bit to make room for those high fiber and healthy fat foods. This is a great opportunity, like I said previously, to add these foods into your diet or increase the intake of these foods. They have a lot of great health benefits, but they're slow digesting. So they might be something that you're kind of limiting a little bit throughout your in-season. So here's a time to increase these high fiber foods, still include your protein, and aim for those healthy fats at each meal and snack as well. So I've got just some ideas here if you're a visual person of balanced snacks. So essentially fiber sources are things like whole grains, whole fruits, whole vegetables, and then your protein and fats are coming from nuts and seeds, dairy like cheese or Greek yogurt, beans and chickpeas or things like lentils or hummus as I have here. So examples here are whole grain crackers with cheese, whole fruit with almonds, Greek yogurt with fruit, or some combination snacks like an apple and sun butter, which is just a sunflower seed alternative to peanut butter. Roasted chickpeas, these are a great snack. They're high fiber. They've got protein in them as well. You can make these at home or you can purchase them already made for you, but these are a great option to have on hand, or simple vegetable sticks and hummus. So just a few ideas of things that would be great for the current time. And I would say as well, just as a reminder, often during the season, because your schedule is so busy, you might find that you have to rely on things like protein bars or packaged granola bars more often, but take this opportunity when you do have a little bit more time at home to focus more on whole sources of food. So for example, whole fruit instead of things like smoothies or juice or dried fruit as an example. All right, so I know that's a quick video, but hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of how to adjust your nutrition intake if you currently have a reduced training load. I just wanted to remind you as well that we are currently offering virtual appointments at the Sport Med Clinic. So most of our practitioners are, but I, as a dietitian, am offering virtual appointments. If you're interested in getting some further support with your nutrition, send me an email. That's my email here on the slide. Typically during the school year, you would call the clinic to book, but right now, because we're doing virtual appointments, you're just booking through the practitioner directly. So send me an email and we can chat about it and set up your appointment. Otherwise, thanks for listening and stay well.